Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Luminous Human School. I'm Christy Sandino, and I'm here with Lindsay Davis.
Hello.
And today we want to talk about a really good manifestation hack.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm, mm, mm.
It's like a really fun side road.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
adventure trail.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you start looking at manifestation practices and theory, one of the big ones that comes up all the time is what you focus on expands.
Hmm.
And that's true.
Yeah.
So a lot of the thought process around that is like really focusing on uh, the feeling you're going to have when you have that thing, and connecting that feeling tone, because that feeling tone is the feeling tone where what you want to manifest kind of lives. So you're bringing yourself into resonance with what you desire.
Hmm.
But often what can happen is that we start to think about what we want. So we're focusing on it, but instead of with our feelings, with our mind,
Right.
focusing on wanting that thing, and maybe even how great it would be to have that, and how happy I would be when I would have that. But what you can hear starts to happen is you start slipping into lack. You start
Hmm.
slipping into, I want that thing that I don't have. And so what you're actually focusing on is, I don't have what I want.
Hmm.
And now we're expanding the wrong thing.
We don't have to worry too much. I think that people can get that mindset of like, oh no, I'm supposed to be focusing on what I want. And then they bring all this worry and this fear in, which is not the direction you're trying to go either. And like, I think sometimes it's like, oh, I've got to get it right. I've got to get it perfect. And that's not what manifestation is about either.
Right. So what we wanted to talk about today is sidestepping that whole piece. So when you find yourself spending more time feeling that feeling of what you don't have, which is so common. So like Lindsay just said, please don't worry when you notice this happening, because we all have goals and dreams and things we're working towards,
Hmm.
and things that we want to have that we don't have yet. That's
Hmm.
growth, like setting our eyes on the next, the new, and growing ourselves into that. So when that starts to become a little bit painful, and you're feeling a little bit more of the pain than the ability to access the vibration of how you'll feel when you have that thing, we here's where the side road comes in that we want to share with you.
Yeah, and it's so much about like focusing on overall alignment. And I think too it's being aware of like when you are thinking about what you want, um notice like what's coming up for you, like what is it feeling like? So just like you were saying, Christy, it's like if you're starting to go down that route of like, oh, I don't have it, I don't have it, that doesn't feel really great. So you're not really in like alignment with receiving it. You're in alignment with the lack of it. And actually, something I was just thinking of was Abraham Hicks talks about this way of reframing it or thinking about it is like bringing more joy and fun into it and saying, wouldn't it be nice? And so, and I guess it depends on how you like view saying that. But if you think of it in a fun way of being like, say you're for some reason like having a Jeep popped into my head because I kind of want a Jeep, but like I don't know why this popped into my head. But rather than me being like, oh my gosh, like a Jeep would be so cool to have, but I can't have it. It's too expensive. It's, whatever excuses. If I saw one, I could be like, wow, wouldn't it be nice to drive a Jeep? That sounds so fun. And just playing with the joy of having it and maybe being like, ooh, yeah, when I have my Jeep, I'm going to go here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to off road and, reframing it in a way that feels really fun so that you're working on your alignment towards what it is that you want and making it feel good rather than not so good. Because you could be out driving and see a Jeep and being like, gosh, yeah, it must be nice for that person to have that Jeep. I'll never have one. That's, ugh, and then let your mind go off on all these different excuses of why you don't have a Jeep or why you can't have a Jeep. Or you can play with like, oh gosh, how fun is that? Oh, I love the color of that Jeep. Maybe I want that color. And like really thinking about how it feels to have it rather than not have it. And that's alignment.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes the thing that you're going for, you are so attached to, and it feels so sticky
Mm,
that it's great to just move your thoughts away from it completely.
right.
So you're still, that doesn't mean you stop taking action towards it. You
Right.
still have it, in your plan of your aligned action and the steps you're going to take towards this goal. And I think getting a new car is a great example. So, maybe you're setting money aside each week and you are, looking into loans you could get or looking at the difference between buying one brand new or buying one a couple years old or leasing. So you're doing all the things you would need to do before you would buy a car.
Yeah, thinking of different options and how that can come into your reality. So those are the inspired actions as
Yes.
some things to be doing. But go ahead, I know. Going somewhere with this too.
Yeah, but then whenever but then you just want your focus to be all in on alignment, not alignment for that thing, just your
Mhm,
highest alignment, feeling as good as you can possibly feel
mhm.
every day, not sidestepping the things you need to feel, but you are making your goal your highest vibrational alignment that's possible in each moment.
Yeah, and I think that this can be especially helpful when just kind of you were talking about is when it is something that does feel a little sticky, like something that maybe you've wanted for a long time and it hasn't come about, and there's maybe a lot of maybe old stories or limiting beliefs around it that are almost like ingrained in your brain, like an addiction. That it's just like, this is how I think about this. This is so natural for me to think about this in this way that it's hard to see yourself actually having it.
Yes.
So it's like, how do when you have maybe a lot of resistance that keeps coming up every time you think about having that thing, it's sort of like that's when you can go, okay, maybe I need to set this aside and not focus so much on having it, but just focus on what makes me feel good? Like, what makes me feel my best? What makes me feel the most joyful? And getting into that space of alignment. And that's what we're talking about, is just like, what can I do every day that allows me to feel good? Because then you get into a space of drawing in more of the things that make you feel good,
Yeah.
which could be that thing you really want. Or maybe it's something else because you've focused so much on your alignment that that's totally shifted. So you're
Yeah.
letting go of attachment.
Yeah. That's when you start calling in the even better.
Mm,
So when you say
yes.
things like this or something better, sometimes just stepping away from the mental or emotional repetition around something that's gotten really sticky, or like you were saying, it could be something that you've tried for in the past and it hasn't gone the way you wanted it to. I don't want to really label it as a failure because
Right.
everything is just steps towards, but that's what the mind does. It makes stories about, well, it didn't work before. Why is it going to work now? So this is what we're talking about when you just want to say, all right, I am really sticky, attached, conflicted, lots of story around this. When I notice myself obsessing maybe about this goal or
I
thinking
resonate.
about it in a negative way or going into a wanting, wishing, not in a joyful way. um
Yeah.
I'm going to have a plan to bring myself back into my highest alignment. I'm going to say there's not a solution here that my mind could work out right now,
Mm.
and I'm going to promise myself for maybe just start with a week, because when you've been really wrapped up in thoughts about a particular wish, dream, or goal, it can be really scary to say, oh, then I'm just not going to think about it.
Yeah.
Ah,
Be
what's going
really hard to let that go because it's sometimes these things can become part of our identity in a way. It's like, no, that's just like how I am. That's how I think about this thing. This is my pattern, which feels like an addiction sometimes. And it's like, oh, I'm letting that go. So I like this idea of, well, like, what if for a week I let go of that topic? I let go of needing that. I let go of trying to figure it out. I let go of trying to plan. I let go of trying to manifest it. And I just focus on that alignment. I just focus on all the things that make me feel good. And when thoughts of that thing come up, have awareness around it. Like, okay, that's there. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole with that right now because for this week, I've chosen to focus on feeling really good. And in a way, it might feel really good to go down that rabbit hole because your brain has a neurological pathway to think that way. So it can feel good, but
Yes.
that it's might not be getting you might not actually be getting you where you want to be. And in the end, might not feel so good. So it's kind of like, let me take a break. I'm just going to take a break from that for a little bit.
It's the brain tricking you into thinking what's known and what's comfortable is what is feels good.
Yeah.
And when you really are tuning into your alignment and noticing what makes you feel really, really good, you'll start to notice, oh, it might feel like like I have more control over the situation when I'm doing that, but do I feel really good?
If
Am
you
I
really tune in.
uplifted? Am I joyful? Do I have a sense of inner peace? Is my nervous system balanced?
Hmm. Or is it just bringing you into a state of the lack again? Like, oh, I don't have it.
Or triggering like cortisol and those
Mm.
kind of uh sympathetic nervous system chemicals when we go into activated states that
Hmm.
can be very addictive.
Oh yeah.
Like a hit of adrenaline, a hit, like you
Right.
feel that rush go through your body.
That's a good point. There's so much that's actually, yeah, like can be happening on a physiological level and things like in our brain that, just like we're saying, it's like it might feel good in a sense, but that's when like we bring in that deep level of awareness and go, well, does it? Or at the end of this, like after I like go down this rabbit hole for a bit, and am I going to be like, oh, I'm in that pattern again? Oh, it doesn't feel that great. So, what would it feel like to go all in for that week or 2 weeks and see how it feels? And some of this is like a retraining of the brain towards some different practices that do feel good. So we're like creating new roadways, new pathways in the brain to start to wire our thinking a little bit differently. And
Yeah.
there are studies that this is
Yeah,
very true. We can train our brain. It's neuroplasticity, I think is the word, right? Like
it is.
we can reshape the pathways and the way that we think through like new repetition, through new practices. So we have a lot more control than we think sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, and Joe Dispenza talks about this actually,
Yeah.
about memorizing feeling good. So when you're going into your daily practice, which is why you want to do it in the morning, because you want to anchor these really high vibrational feelings, and you're memorizing them. You're memorizing them on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, and on a physical level. Literally in your brain is creating this new neural pathway for feeling great. You're
Hmm.
memorizing joy, you're memorizing physical pleasure. Like I often in meditations will get like just warm feelings moving through my body. And so this is what you're practicing, and you're letting go of some of those. You can say that those thoughts are also practices. Like what are you practicing? Are you practicing I wish, I want, I don't have? Or you're practicing, wow, I just spent 30 minutes dropping into joy, into peace, into clarity, into love, into
Hmm.
my best alignment for myself, whatever that may be that day.
I'm thinking too, because we're talking about like what are we memorizing for our day? Like what are we dropping into? And like as you're saying, oh, am I spending 30 minutes in the morning feeling joy, feeling love? Or, and I'm thinking back to Joe Dispenza, and he talks about like most people, they get up, get up at the, same side of the bed and they go into their patterns, they brush their teeth, and then they get their coffee and they practice the same thing and they think, oh yeah, where's that anxiety that I have? Oh, I'm supposed to be worried about something. Oh, there's and you start your day off and you just start picking up all those old patterns that aren't really serving you. Whereas you can really start to shift this by being really intentional about how you begin your day, and really any time in your day, but the morning is really great for this because you're rewiring from the start. And you're
Yeah.
like, what do I actually want to pick up today? What do I want to wake up and start my day with? Do I want to be like, where's that anxiety? Or do I want to be like, where's that love? Yeah, that's there too. That's also a possibility.
Right. You can reach for that as opposed to, oh, where's that ache? Where's that pain? Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, that's right. I don't feel good. Oh, yeah, I remember now.
Yeah. So it's like, is that the alignment we want to be in, or do we want to reach for like the good feeling alignments and let's start practicing all those good feelings And then as we are practicing all those good feelings and we put ourselves in that, we'll say high vibrational state, then we're calling in more of the things that we want that match that through law of attraction. It's like what else could come into our lives that continue to match that high vibrational state?
Right.
So like what's possible? And this is something personally I want to experiment with on, a couple of topics that I feel that like real stickiness with. And, just really go all in. I've been thinking about this for a while. It's like, oh, maybe I've just been like dabbling with my, alignment with it and then continuing to pick up the problem because that's sort of like what I feel sort of addicted to. I have that pathway in my brain that's like, yeah, that's the way you got to go. I'm like, what would happen if I just focused fully on my alignment for a week, 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and just saw what was possible. And a part of me does feel that fear, that sort of like, oh my God, am I really gonna I'm gonna let go of that thing that I think about all the time that I don't have?
Mhm. Yeah, I know it's interesting if you just feel into something that I think most of us have something we want very much and don't have yet. And if you just feel into what it feels like, what if I just let that go completely? Like, didn't think about it. Still, there's actions you can take. I'm not saying give up.
No, that's not it at all.
Right.
It's not a
But just
giving up.
not all focus and attachment off. So now, and I love your phrase, Lindsay, you said this earlier today, just all in on alignment. To me, that just feels like such a powerful mantra.
Mm.
And just all in on my alignment and letting go of what I think I want. And can I even do that for 1 week?
Right? So that's like that awareness has to come in because those thoughts that you repeatedly think about all the time, they're gonna come in.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like and we don't want to be like, no, I'm not thinking about that. Rawr. Like, no. It's more like, oh, I see you. But for now, I'm focused on this thing. I'm focused on my alignment and maybe having some practices like ready to go that help you come into alignment of feeling good. Because those thoughts are going to come up, like the things that you always think about, the lack, the problem that you have to fix, especially if it's the big one, it's going to come in and your brain's going to be like, we've got to fix it. We've got to figure this out. There must be a solution. But what if you just give your brain a break from trying to figure it out and work on the energy with some different practices?
Yeah. And not the energy of that thing, just your energy. Like, bring all your attention back in to you, pull it out of all these things outside of you. You can even just see yourself if you'll catch yourself thinking about that thing if you decide to do our little challenge.
Yeah.
And and it's not a moment to punish yourself. It's a moment to say, "Ooh, this is my chance to go back all in on alignment." Yes. And
I love
so
that.
it's almost just like that's your cue. Ooh, I get to go back to what makes me feel aligned and good.
Yeah, looking at it as an opportunity to feel good again. It's like, how fun is that though? Like, so rather than being like, oh man, I thought about that thing, it's like, oh, great. Oh, thank you for that reminder that I like want to focus on feeling really good right now. Oh yeah, that's available right now. Why not choose that? Like to
Yeah.
me, that sounds really fun. So
Yeah.
I'm down for this.
And we actually have a document on our Instagram link tree that we made to go with the podcast, Breaking the Cycle of Overthinking.
Hmm.
But it will work hand in hand with this as well because it has a list of state shift practices.
Hmm.
So you could print that out and use this similarly, you know.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, things like, meditation, getting outside in nature, some breath work, dancing around, like these are just some of the examples that are on that document. Um, and there's so many more on there. And it's just great to have that available, especially just because in those moments, it's nice to have something where you're like, you don't have to think about it. You just look and you go, oh, there's the list. Boom, I'm doing that one. And it makes it easy.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it as easy for yourself as possible.
Yeah.
Uh,
And, something that we were talking about a bit ago is like for me, there's been certain morning practices that I've had that I'm like, oh, yeah, this feels really good to do that. But then there have been moments where I'm like, well, like I've been practicing just writing down gratitudes in the morning. But then there's some days where I'm like, oh yeah, I've got to like sit down for that amount of time and like write these gratitudes. And it's not that it's like a bad thing. It's just maybe on that day, something else would serve me better. Like, how am I looking at it? Am I like, oh, I've got to take these 10 minutes and like write all this stuff down? Maybe for me, maybe just thinking about things I'm gratitude would feel better, or that I'm grateful for would feel better than sitting down and writing everything out. I was almost getting to a point where it was just like another thing like kind of check off the list, and that's not necessarily how I wanted to view it. So for me, it was like, okay, what are some different things that I could work with, that I could choose from, that I'd be like, oh yeah, that one would feel really good today. Maybe that's putting a song on and dancing around and being like, yeah, I feel so good moving my body. I feel really amazing. The song lifts me up. And maybe that's the option for me that day. So it's
yes.
nice to have maybe like a few different things that like really feel good to you, that you have available as a morning practice.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, whatever it is for you. And I mean, different meditations, like I've been doing the same one for a little while, but it's nice to have some different options. Like if you want to sit down and meditate, some different options, whether it's guided or it's just listening to music, or you're just sitting and not doing anything, just being.
Yeah. Watching your breath.
Yeah. Doing breath work, journaling. Yeah, we've got a lot of this is actually on that document that you could work into a morning practice.
Yeah. So, oh, we hope that this gives you something to play with, something to have
Yeah.
fun with as you find your best, most just like I wanted to say like yummy feeling alignment.
Yeah, just feeling as good as you possibly can, and yeah, just bringing that self-love into, right? Like we always want to be gentle with ourselves as we're getting into these practices, and it's not about like being perfect or anything, but it's just like what makes me feel good. And when I think about that, it's just why not? Why not do
we
that?
we have such an agreement in society around talking about what we don't like and
Mm,
what we're so mad about and what
drama.
aches and pains we have and how this person did this thing to us, and we don't have as much agreement around talking about how great we feel and the amazing thing that happened in our day, or the bird we saw that was just so beautiful and filled our heart with gratitude, and
Ugh.
little sweet moments. So
Yeah.
it's so important that we memorize our joy
Mm,
more than we memorize our pain.
I love that. Yeah. And see how that shifts your day, your week, your life when you go all in on alignment. What is possible? So I really encourage you to try this and truly just be like, hey, okay, how could things shift for me if I just focus on my joy and I focus on my love? What could really happen? Have you ever gone all in on this? Because I'm ready to do it. I'm doing
I'm
it.
I'm feeling this.
Yeah. And
I'm gonna go
and
all in on joy and love. That sounds so good.
yeah. And I maybe we'll do like a follow-up episode um after a few weeks, just kind of like how has our experience been? Like what has come up? What have we noticed?
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm doing this though, for sure.
Yeah, and if you haven't gone to Instagram at Luminous Human School and printed out that document, we encourage you to do that, because I think it'll just be a really nice support when
Yeah,
you want to grab for something to shift your state and shift up into alignment.
definitely. So if you do this, if you notice anything from that document that's been really supportive for you, or you're like, all right, I'm ready to go all in on this alignment for the next week or two, let us know how it goes for you because I want to hear about it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, as always, thank you all so much for being here with us on this journey. And we truly love you so much.
Mm, yes, we love you so much.